The Ukrainian delegation for talks with Russia declared that the parties held the first bilateral contacts in Belarus. In Peru, President Pedro Castillo has denounced the alleged collusion of state institutions to oust him. Iran's top nuclear negotiator, Ali Bagheri Kani, traveled to Vienna on Sunday to continue talks on the Iranian nuclear agreement on Monday. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Ukrainian delegation for talks with Russia declared that the parties held the first bilateral contacts in Belarus. The meeting takes place on the Ukrainian and Belarusian common border, as announced by the Russian delegation earlier. The president of Ukraine, Vladimir Medinsky, stated that he had a phone contact with his Belarusian counterpart, Alexander Lukashenko, on Sunday, in which the leader committed himself to keeping all the country's military planes and helicopters on the ground. During the course of the talks and to ensure the security of the Ukrainian delegation during the talks and their return, Zelensky said no preconditions have been imposed, and although he does not believe that the talks with Moscow will be successful, he takes them as an obligation for the sake of peace. Russian presidential assistant Vladimir Medinsky stressed that the sooner the talks begin, the better it will be for the lives of Ukrainians and soldiers on the front line.
We have been working in detail. We talked to the delegation and they agree with the route of the Ukrainian delegation, and everything is absolutely safe since very early in the morning. We have been in Belarus since early in the morning. It takes us about 3 hours to get there, which will be the time of arrival of the Ukrainian delegation from Kiev. For us, every hour, every minute is very important. The sooner the talks start, the better for the lives of our Ukrainian brothers and the soldiers who are in the front line.
The Russian Defense Ministry denounced the Ukrainian forces' use of banned ammunition in Kiev. In Russian Defense Ministry spokesman, Division General Igor Konashenko denounced that Kiev's forces are using live phosphorus ammunition in the theater of operation in Ukraine. These are weapons banned by international law. The senior official detailed on Sunday that the bullets were used in the suburbs of Kiev, very close to the Gostomel airfield. The ammunition referred to are 122mm bullets for howitzers and rockets for BM-21 cannons of Soviet manufacturing. Said systems are explicitly prohibited under the third protocol of the 1980 United Nations Convention on Inhumane Weapons. In addition, the Russian general denounced that Ukraine's government forces deploy armored vehicles and artillery in residential areas, using local population as human shields. On Sunday, France confirmed the shipment of war material to Kiev and new sanctions against Russia for the military operation launched in Ukraine. The information circulated in a press release on the occasion of the Defense Council chaired by French President Emmanuel Macron. The document also confirms the shipment of fuel to Ukraine. European media also reports more sanctions against Russia, including the freezing of assets of important personalities and the exclusion of Russia from the SWIFT financial system. The statements from the Elysee follows Germany's approval of the shipment of anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles to Ukraine. The European Union announced that Europe's airspace is effectively closed to any Russian-owned or registered aircraft, be it public or private. Departure boards at Moscow's Domodedovo and Sheremetyevo airports showed dozens of cancellations on Sunday, including flights to Paris, Vienna, and Kaliningrad. Aeroflot, Russia's biggest airline, said it would cancel its services to Latvia and Romania until at least March 26, and Prague, Warsaw, and Wrocław until March 28. Airlines in Europe, England, and the United States are already announcing new, lengthier routes to comply with the ban. On Sunday, Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson announced Sweden will break its doctrine of not sending arms to countries in active conflict and send military equipment to Ukraine.
As I said, it is not Swedish doctrine to ask for military equipment. The last time this happened, in any significant way was when the former Soviet Union invaded Finland in 1939. For me as Prime Minister, my first and last question is what best serves the security of the Sweden and the Swedish people. My conclusion is that our security is best served by supporting Ukraine's ability to defend itself against Russia. Sweden will therefore send full support to the Ukrainian armed forces.
In Brussels, on Sunday, European Union member states agreed to unblock 450 million euros to buy arms for Ukraine. The measure is part of a wide-ranging package of support and sanctions agreed upon the 27 EU states. According to the bloc's foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, they also formally approved a move to ban any transaction with the Russian Central Bank.
We want to do everything to support Ukraine. We have decided to use our capacities to provide arms, lethal assistance to the Ukrainian army by a value of 450 million of support package and 50 more millions for the non-lethal supplies, fuel, protective equipment. Impose restrictive measures that will paralyze the assets of the Russian Central Bank. More than a half, or about a half, of the financial reserves of the Russian Central Bank will be frozen thanks to this measure, because they are held in banks of the G7 countries, and this represents more or less half of the reserves of the Russian government. This will be frozen, and this is going to be affecting a lot the financial system of Russia.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Ukrainian citizens leave the country afraid of the threats recent events pose on their safety. Many are crossing the border toward their northwestern neighbor, Poland. Our correspondent Adriana Cardoso reports on the exodus on site.
Of Ukrainian refugees cross the border checkpoints in Ukraine and Poland's shared limits. Several days of waiting and queues of some 30 kilometers to leave Ukraine for Poland. According to the Polish government, 115,000 people have already crossed this route since last Thursday.
We arrived at the border to cross it, and we came here because we knew war was coming. I had no other option than to come here with my children. I brought my daughter-in-law as well because she's pregnant, and my youngest son is here in Poland. There is a tough situation at the border. There are many children, especially babies and toddlers. We decided to go because staying at home was just too dangerous right now. If you have children, you have to decide quickly. There are a lot of people, many of them children, who cried all night. It was very cold during the night, and we crossed very slowly.
Poland announced it awaits the arrival of between 1 and 4 million Ukrainians. Warsaw withdrew entry requirements for the refugees, accepting them without COVID tests, passports, or insurance. Residents in other European countries also expect the arrival of relatives from Ukraine.
I'm waiting for my granddaughter. They are bombarding us. I am afraid things are happening, are very frightening. Honestly, I don't know where I will go or what I will do next. I will work. All I know is I will work and I will get my granddaughter out of that mess.
Without help from the authorities, Polish neighbors organized a support network to offer drinks, food, and clothes to the newly arrived.
We are handing out SIM cards from different carriers so refugees can access internet and make calls to Ukraine. The cards can also accept calls to Poland. They're free for whoever needs it. We offer help, whether you need food or transport for Krakow, for example. We help in all ways we can. There are volunteers who brought clothes from different parts of Poland, and anyone who feels like it comes here and they donate their clothes, some food, diapers.
Especially women and children are among those who flee from Ukraine because most men of ages between 18 and 60 years old are not allowed to cross the border.
Adriana Cardoso, Ibai Arbideaza, TeleSUR, Medica, Polonia.
Thank you, Adriana, for this report. Now we continue in Peru. President Pedro Castillo denounced the alleged collusion of state institutions to oust him. The president's remarks comes after the appearance in a national media outlet by a businesswoman who is under investigation on corruption charges. She accused the president of taking part in alleged criminal acts. Regarding that, President Castillo urged the prosecution to verify the facts and call on the people to stay vigilant to defend democracy and the governability of an administration spawned from the people. The head of state also condemned the information leaks from the prosecutor's office on an ongoing investigation. Castillo said that clearly indicates there are people in office who want to destabilize his administration.
50 facts are under investigation by the prosecution. How is it possible that they have been publicly debated in the media? This shows that the prosecution would be a part of a plot to destabilize the government. There is a small sector that will never accept our popular and democratic administration. Today they want to oust us, so that the serious problems in our country remain unsolved. The Peruvian people is aware of the anti-democratic and coup-mongering spirit of this small sector.
On Sunday, the presidency of Peru informed on its official Twitter account that recent speculations in social networks about a possible or upcoming resignation of the Peruvian president are false. The Secretary of Strategic Communication and Press informed that the president of that nation will not step down, contrary to the rumors. They also confirmed that the president has stated in more than one opportunity that he will carry on with his administration until July 28, 2026, when his term formally ends. In his message to the nation, he made a call for the responsible civil society to remain alert and united in favor of the governability and social development of the country. In Colombia, at least 11 people died and 4 continue missing after an explosion in mine in Boyacá department. Authorities informed that the explosion occurred in La Chiapas mine, located between Tasco and Socha municipalities. They detailed that safeguard equipments and local police are making different searching works, and they are unaware of the number of people that could be trapped into mining facilities. Likewise, they hinted that the accident occurred some days after a mine explosion in Samaca municipality in Boyacá that left 5 people dead. We stay in Colombia. The spiral of violence continues. The murder of yet another social leader in Tibu municipality in the north of Santander was registered this Sunday. 33 have been killed so far in 2022. According to the Development and Peace Studies Institute, the victim was identified as Gustavo Antonio Torres. He was killed by armed men inside his home. Torres was a recognized leader of Canyo Indios area. In 2017, after confirmation of Canyo Indio Productivo Association, he was forcibly displaced. According to INDEPAS, 1,319 human rights defenders have been murdered since the signing of the peace agreements. In Mexico, family members of the 43 young Ayotzinapa students who attend the school to become normalist teachers staged a demonstration Sunday marking the 7th year and 5th month of their relative first disappearance in Iguala state of Guerrero. Carrying banners and pictures of the missing students, their relative gathered at the Reforma Promenade in Mexico City, demanding the judicial powers to make actual progress in their inquiries to finally locate them. The 43 students disappeared in 2014 under the administration of Enrique Peña Nieto. To this date, only 3 bodies have been identified. Thousands of colorfully dressed dancers and musicians kicked off carnival celebrations in the Bolivian city of Oruro on Saturday. Paraders say they were missing their traditional celebration after being canceled last year. Almost everyone in Oruro, a former mining center in western Bolivia, has a role, either as a dancer, a musician, a dressmaker, or a makeup artist. The event, one of Latin America's most famous, features around 20,000 dancers dressed in traditional costumes and musicians that parade across the streets of the city. The Carnival of Oruro attracts hundreds of visitors to Bolivia, and it lasts throughout the weekend. This festivity is a United Nations World Heritage event.
We got this illness in one moment or another, thanks to the mom of the Socavon who has made us reborn. This is the strength that she gave us to heal. Maybe other siblings left, and in their memory, we dance and peregrinate today.
On Sunday, the city of Brisbane in northeast Australia was hit by a severe storm, followed by flash floods that left 7 people dead. More than 1,400 homes in the capital of Queensland state were at risk of flooding. Over 28,000 homes experienced power outage statewide. Authorities requested about 700 people to evacuate from the city of Gympie on Saturday after the Mary River system surged beyond 22 meters in what is the town's worst flood since the 1880s. Meteorologists say the flooding and thunderstorm will continue through Monday, moving by then south to New South Wales, where some communities at risk in its northeast have also been told to evacuate. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. Iran's top nuclear negotiator Ali Bagheri traveled to Vienna on Sunday to continue talks on the Iranian nuclear agreement on Monday. Last week, the talks were put on hold so that the different delegations could consult with their senior officials. Soon after Ali Bagheri announced that they were closer than ever to achieving a new nuclear agreement, Tehran has made clear on several occasions that they want to have the oil and banking sanctions lifted because the bans are harming Iran's economy. The 2015 nuclear agreement established a limit on uranium enrichment by Iran. However, in 2018, the United States broke the agreement and enforced sanctions on the country, thus prompting a new round of talks on the treaty between Western countries and Iran. On Saturday, anti-junta and anti-France protests rallied hundreds in Chad. Some 500 people demonstrated against the reigning military junta at the call of the opposition. Protesters were also chanting slogans against France, which they have accused of supporting the regime. The junta said democratic elections would be held at the end on an 18-month transitional period, but with the parliament having been dissolved and the constitution repealed, many like Majid Modeste, a protester in Chad, fear for the future of democracy. The junta promised an inclusive national dialogue open to the opposition and all the armed rebel movements that have been attacking the government for decades. But this dialogue has already been postponed several times, and it is now scheduled for May 10th, with a very strong chance that it will be postponed again. Data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control reveals the devastation from the coronavirus pandemic displays the huge disparity in the healthcare systems that affect minorities, especially African and Latin Americans, who suffer a death rate far above that of white Anglo-Saxon U.S. citizens, with figures nearly twice as high. The new Roseland Community Hospital is located on Chicago's far south side. 95% of the area's inhabitants are African Americans. At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, long queues formed around the block in order to access the hospital's testing facilities, while patients swamped the center's 10-bed intensive care unit. According to Gil Jean, chief nursing officer of the compound, they are the only safety net hospital the new Roseland community has. As a more contagious strain, Omicron, dramatically affected the health center's staffing. People in Syria are experiencing the worst living conditions in a decade due to frequent power crises and the high cost of batteries and generators. Power shortages in winter have intensified the suffering of many Syrians, with energy supplies lacking throughout the country. Citizens have been going to cafes and other well-lit public spaces to work and study. The Syrian government said the power shortage stems from the scarcity of materials needed for the generation of electricity. Al-Saher, the general manager of electricity, also blamed this predicament on U.S. sanctions. He is promising improvements by the end of 2022 with the help of states friendly to Syria. Chinese President Xi Jinping says his administration and the nation's Communist Party are committed to promoting human rights in the country. Chinese President Xi Jinping expressed the government's commitment to China's path on the defense and promotion of human rights. The head of state mentioned the 6 main features of China's human rights development plan: upholding the party's leadership, respecting the people's main position, stemming from national realities, upholding the rights to subsistence and development as the primary and basic human rights, safeguarding human rights in accordance to the law, and participating in global governance on human rights. The dignitary argued that whether or not human rights are upheld in a country cannot be judged by the criteria of others whose practices involve a double standard and exploit the issue of human rights as a political tool to interfere in other countries' internal affairs. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many more stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Remember, you can also join us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.